From the liberal Northeast comes a lone voice of truth. Honest commentary in dishonest times. Think deeper with Juan Newsom. This is the Cure Radio Program. This is the Cure.
So, folks, we have a special guest, longtime friend of the show, Mr. Christopher Harris. Thanks for coming on, Chris.
What's going on, brother man?
How's it going?
Excellent. Just on travel. Just got back home, but doing well.
So what do you think of this primary? It's getting crazy out there. Pete Buttigieg is out. Amy Klobuchar is out. Seems like they're trying to rally behind Biden so that he can oust Bernie. I don't think anything's stopping Bernie. He's just got there's too much excitement behind the campaign on that side, too much momentum. Just wanted to get your thoughts.
Well, where do we start with this? You know, the shame is it's disingenuousness on all their parts. Bernie is the most honest person up on stage because he's an out of the closet socialist.
Yep.
The rest of them all agree. All their policies, when you follow them to their only logical conclusion, all of their policies lead to the exact same place Bernie's promoting. They're just trying to slow walk us. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. I definitely, especially Pete Buttigieg specifically. I mean, if you look, and Elizabeth Warren, if you look at their policy positions, they're pretty much in line. The only difference is Pete Buttigieg. He's well-mannered, well-toned, and he doesn't come off as crazy. So, he can make the illogical sound logical, kind of like Obama kind of had that gift. He can make the implausible plausible just by, having that presence and being measured in his speech. I think Pete Buttigieg kind of put a mortgage out on the future, dropped out of the race, knowing that in a future bid that the party will get behind them. I don't know why Klobuchar sold out, but we'll see, I guess, whatever they pay her off with or whatever, maybe it's a cabinet position or.
Well, she left because she knew she had no reasonable chance to begin with. So, she was never a serious candidate. Most people don't even know who she is. And so, it was beneficial for her to go out on the campaign trail because it raised her personal profile.
It raised money too.
It's just like going from, 0 to 1. She's still not going to be thought highly of. Maybe at best she's aiming for a cabinet position. Because that's one of those things you kind of tend to see around here is like, in those positions, it's like, okay, I've raised my own profile. Maybe I attracted some delegates, some votes, bring me on your ticket or bring me into your administration. Because there are a few people like a Mitch McConnell or whatever like that. Those people who they really enjoy the Hill. They enjoy being a senator or a congressman or whatever like that. But for a lot of those other people, they're like, I will probably never be able to be Speaker of the House or House Majority Leader, House Minority Leader, Senate Majority Leader, none of that. So but I can become Secretary of Education, you know what I mean? Or something like that. And that's where I kind of feel like she's aiming for that.
Mm-hmm. Do you think they'll be able to take this thing from Bernie?
Well, can they? Sure, they can. They can most definitely take it from her. The question is at what cost?
Yep.
That's it. It's like, they see, one of the things that bothers me, just because, I expect the media to go ahead and be honest, but then, I realize who the media is, so I know they're not going to be honest. But there is a civil war taking place on the left. There's been rumblings. The big tent party, the proverbial big tent party, is not unified. In fact, it has not been unified for a while because there's been a war going on between the Clinton, the Clintonistas, as you will, and the Obamas.
Yep.
Right. So that's those two factions within the DNC have been fighting each other for a while. The question is, and then now all of a sudden, you got the Bernie Sanders people. See, the Bernie Sanders people are the youth. They're the future. You know,
I think a lot of those Sanders people were Obama people too. When you look back, you know, because there was a lot of excitement about Obama. He didn't do, you know, as many college campuses as a Sanders would have. And, you know, I would say Bernie Sanders is more of a populist than Obama was, but the youth was definitely behind that presidency and was very excited about it. Now I see the party as a three-way split. That's the way I see it, because you have the Clintons who are kind of fading out and trying to hold on to power, and then you have members of the deep state. Most of them are Clintonistas, as you just said, and then you have members of the deep state that were inserted during the Obama years, and so now you have these Sanders people who are proverbial outsiders trying to penetrate and overthrow the system. I really think it's a three-way split when you really when you look at the landscape.
Well, and see, here's the problem. There's the money issue.
Yep.
So, for example, Bernie Sanders has the support of young people, and they have no money. You know, the whole term dialing for dollars, right? At the end of the day, you need to be able to get, it costs money to run a campaign. Yeah. And when you look and you see, for example, the ability of a Hillary Clinton to raise millions, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Oh, yeah.
Bernie is not going to get that.
No.
Because the people who would give, nobody is going to write a six-figure, let alone a seven-figure check to the Bernie campaign. Because if Bernie's policies get implemented, they're going to take 6, 7, 8, 9 figures out of the pockets of the people who have the ability to write those checks. So it's one of those things where, and you'll never see the mainstream media get deep into this because they don't want to reveal the fact that there's a schism within the left.
I think you're definitely right about that. Wall Street is scared, and I've been privy to some inside information. I can't really reveal my sources, but Wall Street is scared to death of Bernie Sanders, as they are Elizabeth Warren. They're comfortable with Biden or Buttigieg, maybe. If now Silicon Valley, some of those people like Bernie Sanders, but he's still not going to command the fundraising of a Buttigieg or another prize candidate. I'm worried, and you touched on something. I'm worried more about Bernie Sanders' policies. I'm looking at some of these policies that he's suggesting, particularly with taxes and regulations. And, just the other day, he said one of his advisors, they're drawing up, potential or, prospective executive orders already. They haven't even won anything. They're talking about declaring executive orders for climate change, just declaring climate change as a national emergency. They're talking about a 77% death tax. Some of these policies would kill the economy, literally put it at a standstill. And, Trump signed these trade deals and so forth with, he redid NAFTA and, he did phase 1 with China and some of our other Pacific partners. And now I know later this year, they're looking to complete trade with the European Union and Great Britain. Even with those deals in place, you get a Sanders in office, man, and it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be. I want to get your thoughts on some of these policies that he's prescribing for the economy.
My favorite term, a raging dumpster fire. That's what they would be. I mean, it would literally be, well, okay, let me put it like this. The Titanic was built in such a way that if the Titanic had struck the iceberg head on, it would have survived. Okay, I mean, ships are designed in such a way that they, and if it had sunk, it would have sunk after several hours, and the loss of life would have been a lot less. Okay, it was that freak event that the Titanic sideswiped the iceberg, and it ripped right below the waterline. And then, of course, you had the fact that some of the rivets that were holding the ship together were, there was some faulty build in that, and so it was just, all those things coming together is what led to the Titanic being the massive catastrophe it was. But once again, if the Titanic had hit the iceberg head on, there might have been a handful of people who died, but more than likely everybody would have survived. To me, the difference between a Bernie Sanders versus a Joe Biden is the Titanic hitting the iceberg dead on, and Bernie Sanders is sideswiping it. Sideswiping that iceberg of socialism will cause the rivets to pop, water will flow in below the waterline, and that sucker will go down quick, fast, in a hurry. I mean, and here's the thing I point out, Will. Juan, President Trump, and I don't say this in the least bit disrespectful manner, President Trump is not a genius, but he is. He's not a genius, but he is. You don't have to be a genius to realize that. I was explaining this to somebody earlier. Like when you were a kid, you used to play with the water hose, right? And if you crimped the water hose, if you bent it, how the water would, pretty much just come to a stop or a trickle. Well, that's all that really happened under the Obama administration. I mean, what George W. Bush did in the last year of his administration is he started stepping on the hose, right?
Yep.
But then Obama just totally bent the hose in half.
Yep.
And you wonder why the economy turned out the way it did.
Yep.
So what did President Trump did? He did the simple thing. He took his foot off, he uncrimped the hose, and the water's flowing.
Yep.
Under Trump's leadership, this administration has cut 8.5 regulations for every new rule.
Yep.
Now that's his promise was to cut 2 regulations for every new one, but they have cut 8.5 for every new one.
Yep.
They've
rolled back a lot. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, their deregulatory efforts have already slashed the regulatory cost by nearly $50 billion. Now, the savings from that will reach about $220 billion, once all those major actions are fully implemented. And then like there's all these different pieces of deregulation legislations that he signed that are expected to help increase the annual real incomes for Americans by $40 billion. But here's something else. The deregulatory efforts that he's put in will also help Americans to save an estimated $3,100 a year. Now, that's in addition to the fact, it's just fascinating because that's in addition to the fact of like productivity and wages, right? People, the Bureau of Labor Statistics has these, this information, but like the real output per hour of all persons versus the real compensation per hour, there have been times like we could look going back to Ronald Reagan, right, where the output and the compensation were pretty closely matched, and they were rising, which is part of the reason why he won so strongly, because you saw this significant increase from the time he got elected in 1980 to his reelection in 85, where it just jumped up dramatically, like literally jumped up 10%. Right. But see, the last time that the actual real compensation per hour was higher than the output was back in 1956, basically during the Eisenhower administration. Now, we all know, if we study history and excuse me, in economics, that the economy was booming in the 1950s. Like, I just swept to re-election in 1956. So when you look at this graph that I'm looking at, and you'll see that no other president except Donald J. Trump since his election has had during his administration where the actual real compensation per hour has surpassed the output per hour of all persons.
Yep.
So we're going back 70, almost 70 years, 70 years worth of data. And everybody else, during Bill Clinton's boom years, right? Well, it was touching it, but it hadn't surpassed it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Under Trump, it's surpassing it. So that looks. The bottom line is, it's the economy, stupid.
Yep. They, when you look at this economy, and it's definitely a lot of opportunity. A lot of opportunity that, when I look at the households, you have to take advantage of it now while it's here, because you don't know. You look, President Trump. I believe he'll get reelected this year, but after that 4 years is up, you don't know what we're looking at. Republicans maybe retain the White House, maybe. It rarely happens. Maybe conventional wisdom says no, but these are the years where you have to really make moves and try to position yourself to be able to endure whatever comes. And you look at the stock market. I mean, stock market's back up. Coronavirus scares all of last week, but now the market is back up. So,
look, the smart money. Look, last week, smart money was buying stocks because they knew that this was going to go back up. And it kind of comes back to me. And this we're jumping all over the place, but to me, this is about economics, and there's it's the whole geopolitical, socioeconomic landscape. One of the things I was having a conversation with somebody about, Juan, was like the Black community in particular, and people want to talk about the racial wealth gap. Well, here's one of the things: it's about mindset first and foremost.
Yep.
Because you can take a Black couple. We can take couple A and couple B, right? And couple A, and both couples graduated from the exact same college, right? We can say we'll just say University of Maryland, right? So a very high University of Maryland, University of Virginia, doesn't matter, whichever one of the schools. Both of them are highly rated public schools. And maybe the husbands, so you had couples who got married at college sweethearts. So the husbands both graduated from the School of Engineering, and the wives both graduated from the School of Business, right? And they could both sets get hired at the same jobs, same company, same jobs, right? So there's parity right then and there. Neither one of them came from any money. They all had to pay for student loans. But here's what will happen is that within 5 to 10 years after couple A and couple B start their working life, what you will find most likely is that couple B, and we'll say couple B is the white couple, their net worth will exceed that of the Black family. And it's not because they're getting paid anything additional. Their salaries could be almost exactly the same. The difference is, one, it's how Black people choose to look at money, choose to look at the environment, choose to look at the economy, and how they choose to invest. Yeah, because we don't invest in the stock market enough. I mean, there's plenty of documentation to show that. And so, every Black person likes to think safe, right? Most Black people like to think safe. I'm just going to invest in real estate. Well, real estate's great. You can make money, but real estate does not go up anywhere near as fast as the stock market.
Yeah, real estate is the long game.
Yeah, so you're taking a long game, and great. You know what? If you invest in real estate, you'll be better off. And, by the time you hit 65, you started investing at 22, whatever like that, right out of college. By the time you hit 65, you'll be fine. You're not going to be hurting for money. You'll have a nice, comfortable economy, retirement. But let's just, I'm making up numbers here, but just for proportion's sake, you might have a $1 million net worth when you hit 65 years old. because you were, diligent and wise in your investing. But what happened is that white family will have a net worth of $5 or $6 million because they chose to put that money into the market.
Yep.
And that's it. That's the racial wealth gap. It's not any nefarious plan by the evil white man to try to keep black people down. It might have been in the past. Let me say that it might have been in the past, but in today's day, look, you have access to all recorded history of knowledge of humankind, right, and right at your fingertips.
Yep.
If you decided to dive into the market, you can go and do the research. No one is keeping you from researching, and no one's keeping you from getting involved in the market. And when you do, you'll realize it's in your best interest to vote for people who are not going to penalize you for being successful.
Yep, exactly.
So when you have if a black family decided to do the exact same thing that the white family did, and they create a $5 million net worth as opposed to a $1 million net worth, well, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children, right? Isn't that what the word says?
Exactly.
And so, who the heck are you to tell me that because I was diligent and I decided to deal with opportunity costs, and I decided not to take this vacation or that vacation because I wanted to build up a nest egg to be able to pass on the next generation, and now you are going to come along, Mr. Big Government, and say I didn't build that. You're going to tell me, no, you should not be able to leave that $5 million to your kids because it would give them an unfair advantage. And that's what's at stake right now with this election cycle.
Yep, exactly.
We'll never be able to catch up. If you care about the racial wealth gap, we'll never be able to catch up to whites or any other ethnic group as long as we vote for the likes of a Bernie Sanders, who actually, my God, the man, he Bloomberg said, it's the world's most well-known socialist who has 3 homes, and he's never done an honest day's work in his life, but somehow he managed to be, I think his net worth is over $2 million. I'm pretty certain he did not sit down and write the book that he wrote that made him all that money. So he's never done an honest day's work in his life, but yet he has a $2 or $3 million net worth and owns 3 homes. And he's saying we need to punish people if they get too wealthy.
2.5 million to be exact.
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy, man.
This is The Cure.